Hi again, Panther fans, and welcome to the Panther Insider Podcast, driven by Ford. This is Dave Cohen, the radio voice of the Panthers. On this latest show, once again, we go inside Georgia State basketball with head coach Jonas Hayes. On this show, we're recapping the Panthers' recent road trip through the state of Virginia. We started out at Harrisonburg, at James Madison, finishing up in Norfolk at Old Dominion. Georgia State got a split, and we'll talk to Coach Hayes about those two games, as well as upcoming games this week at the GSU Convocation Center with Coastal Carolina and with Texas State. Georgia State's won 3 of their last 4 ball games. They now sit at 12-14 overall, 6-8 in Sun Belt Conference play. I will add also on this week's show, Coach Hayes and I will reminisce about former Georgia State head coach Charles Lefty Drizel, who passed away this past Saturday morning at the age of 92. A Hall of Famer and a giant of the game in college basketball who certainly left his mark following 5 seasons and 10 games as the head coach here at Georgia State. We'll get Coach Hayes, who played against Lefty actually one time. We will reminisce about the legacy left here at Georgia State. Once again this week, it's back home to face Coastal Carolina and Texas State. Basketball tickets available by calling the ticket office at 404-413-4020 or online at georgiastatesports.com. And as always, if you've missed any of our previous podcasts, they're all available online on the Apple Archives page at georgiastatesports.com. Once again, we're talking Georgia State basketball on this latest Panther Insider podcast. Right now, let's welcome head coach Jonas Hayes to the Panther radio microphones. Congrats on the win this past Saturday at Old Dominion. And the one thing I'm most happy about, don't have to pack any bags now until you head to the conference tournament in Pensacola.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, Dave. It has been an interesting year. We have completed 26 games. 16 of them have been on the road. I think our guys have grown up a great deal, learning how to win on the road with your decision makings. But I'm sure glad that we get a chance to stay unpacked for the next 2 weeks before the tournament.
Great thing about playing the final 4 games here at home, aside from the travel, is right now 2 games under 500 overall and in league play. Got an opportunity here to make a run at home and finish this season on a really positive note because you've won 3 of the last 4 and then take that mojo and that momentum down to Pensacola in the tournament.
You're exactly right. And it is always our goal, goal to want to be playing our best basketball mid to late February leading up into your conference tournament. And I do feel, good about where we are situated from a mental standpoint. Our preparation has been really, really good. Our guys and our locker room has been in a really good space. And luckily for us, and fortunately for our guys, they're starting to see some of the results that we all want, by just staying true to the process. And so here we go. It's going to be a fun 2 weeks.
All right, let's recap right now the recent road trip through the state of Virginia, your final regular season conference road trip. Again, started out in Harrisonburg, Virginia, against the Dukes of James Madison. Interestingly enough, where Lefty coached prior to coming to Georgia State, but we'll get to that a little later on in the podcast. 83-63 the final score, and they came out and threw not just the first punch, but a barrage of punches out of the gate. They went up 17-0. And truthfully, we, Georgia State, spent the rest of the 35 minutes or so just trying to catch up and dig out of the hole.
Dave, they did more than just punch. They kicked, they grabbed, they clawed, they shot, they threw rocks, they threw boulders. At one point in time, I actually literally thought we were never going to score and we were never going to get a stop. And it was they are a really, really talented team. They're a really talented team at home. And for a good portion of the year, they were ranked inside the top 20. I think, along with App, but James Madison is a team that I think that can win games in the NCAA tournament. They're really, really good. Coach Byington and his staff has done a phenomenal job of putting that program together. And it was something to behold, to be on the losing end, the wrong end of that. But it was impressive all at the same time. But, at the end of the day, I still don't think we have a group of guys that give up, because at one point in time, from I think the 6-minute mark to midways through the second half, we actually outscored them 41-23. And so we actually, got up off the mat. But when you dig yourself such a big, big hole against a team that is that talented, you give yourself no chance.
Georgia State trailed that one 51-26 at halftime, and you're right, in the second half actually went through a stretch where you outscored them. Dwan Odom, not feeling well, did not start the ball game. Brendan Tucker made his first start of the season.
Yeah, and he's always ready when his name and number is called. And Dwan wasn't feeling good, and he was the next man up. And I thought he did the best he could. He fought. He played, defense, obviously. That's what he does. I think he could be one of our better on-ball defenders, and he gave the effort.
Well, he still played 17 minutes when it was all said and done, battling to the final buzzer. Some guys really stepped up, and this guy led you in both games on this Virginia trip. Julian Mackey, who transferred from Northeastern Oklahoma Community College, an Atlanta area kid, played 23 minutes in the JMU game because we had some foul situations there going on as well with, Lucas picked up a couple of quick fouls. Julian ends up with 18 points, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. And I'll ask you about him as well when we get over to Norfolk to take on ODU. But again, drilling down beyond the final score, talk a little bit about Julian Mackey and what you saw from him in that game.
Yeah, it's been a long road of adjustments for him, but I tell people all the time, he's probably one of our top 2 most talented offensive basketball players. And I love his spirit. I love his love of the game. He's a gym rat. He's a competitor. And the message that I was trying to, and I was giving him all throughout the year when his success level wasn't where he wanted it to be, and it was a process to become the player who he wanted to become, just keep showing up, right? The table's going to turn for you. It's going to circle back around for you, and certainly it has. And his work ethic has not lessened. It's actually has increased even before this run of good fortune, good play by him. But he's a guy that just I will show up and I will prepare so that whenever my name or number is called, I will be ready. And that's what you have in Julian Mackey.
We'll talk a little bit more about him when we recap Old Dominion. Leslie and Carrion, 15 points, 8 rebounds. But the one thing that stuck out to me about his game, those 15 points, and he's a paint-post type player anyway, but the aggressiveness that he showed getting to the rim.
Yeah, and so when he has matchups that's in his favor, he has the green light to take those, and he's smart enough to recognize when he doesn't. But he's been such a joy to coach, Dave. I'll be honest with you. He shows up every single day. He put his hard hat on, and he's consistent with who he is and what he does. He knows what he is and knows what he does, and so he's been such a pleasure to coach.
And this is his one and only season with Georgia State, which falls under the headline of that's too bad.
Yeah, that is way too bad. But he plays like he's been in college 1,000 years. He's mature. He just knows his way around the bucket and knows his way around the court. And again, he's a fella that we got, and he wasn't cleared because he had a shoulder ailment, had surgery. He wasn't cleared until late September. And so, January now into February, he's further removed from his actual surgery date. And now he's got his range of motion back. He's now getting his strength back. And so now you're starting to, you always ask, will the real Leslie Incarium, some people on our team call him, because they can't pronounce his name sometimes, Leslie Aquarium. But will the real Leslie Incarium stand up? And he's standing up. I've been very pleased with him.
All right, the young guy on the bench, Malik Ferguson, pressed into more minutes than he had become accustomed to playing in his freshman season at Georgia State. He comes in and starts knocking down threes. He ended up with 12 points in extended minutes because of, again, a couple of guys picking up some quick fouls. Next man up.
Yeah, he's got such a bright future. He's tough as old nails. He picks up things rather quickly. He's got great size, plays with a great level of physicality on the defensive end, and he can shoot the blood out of the ball. And he's been such a joy to coach. He's another guy that you can coach him hard as I don't know what, and he takes good coaching. He takes criticism. He takes coaching at a really, 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 really high rate, but then he gets better. He applies it, and he doesn't make the same mistake, again, a lot. And so I'm very excited about where this game and him being a part of our program takes us.
The only thing I'm going to ask you about James Madison, because you mentioned how good they are. They're a team that can win a game in the NCAA tournament, and maybe more than one. Who knows? But you and I talked about this on the radio on the pregame that night. Between Terrence Edwards and T.J. Bickerstaff, they up there carry the flag of there's a lot of good talent in the Atlanta area in the state of Georgia, and somehow, again, for the two of them, different paths. They've gone from Atlanta, Georgia, and they've landed in Harrisonburg, Virginia, of all places.
Yeah, that's an understatement still, because I think the talent in this area, in this state, is running over, and my cup is runneth over. And you have to be diligent and make sure that the individuals in this state, high school coaches, parents, AAU coaches and personnel, they know that we are a place that I think if they want to play for a coaching staff that's really going to dig in with you, that really loves on his guys, but also coach them hard, allow us to coach them, and then be able to play in close proximity to the people that you love, and they also get to have the opportunity to enjoying your success. We'll put our arms around that.
All right, time now to recap Georgia State at Old Dominion. Final score, Georgia State 68, Old Dominion 65. Again, to bring about a quote from former coach Lefty Driesell, quote unquote, good teams win on the road. And this is a game where we were down early, ended up taking a 4-point lead into the locker room at halftime, got up by as many as 12, got down by as many as 7 in the second half, and then Julian Mackey down 2. Fires. He was 0 for 6 behind the three-point line prior to taking that shot. He ends up 1 for 7, a huge three-point shot to go up 1, throw in a couple of Jaden Turner free throws late, and good defense, and you get out of there with a 3-point win at Old Dominion. And let me just say this thing about Old Dominion. Great crowd in Chartway Arena for a team that's dead last in the Sun Belt Conference. That was a good atmosphere.
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere. I'm thrilled, tickled pink, that we were able to get up out of there with a win. But let's go back to Julian Mackey. It's amazing. It's amazing what can be accomplished if a kid operates with confidence, right? And he had been 0 for 6. Again, like I was telling our team, I was telling somebody a few weeks ago when Leslie hit his 3. He stepped up to the line and like he had made 45 on the year. Well, Julian, he stepped up to that 3-point line at the top of the key, and as if you had never known he was 0 for 6 from the line. But that was an unbelievable display of confidence that he had in his own ability, but our teammates and confidence in him that he'd be able to knock that shot down. That game was a game of runs. Basketball is a game of runs. Early leads don't last. It's when the game settles in and you get to the moment of truth. What are your decisions are then? But I tell you what, we wasn't really scoring. They put that zone up on us. And we were trying to figure out a method of breaking it. We had a couple of options that nothing was working. But what I applauded our guys, they went on ODU went on a 27-8 run for us to go from being up 12 to down 7. Well, the last 5 minutes of the game, they didn't score a bucket. But the thing was, we didn't score either. And I thought our defense showed up. It stood up. And again, that's why I always preach to our guys, defense travels, number one, and you win a whole lot of ball games with your defense, because offense is going to come and go. You're going to have days where you shoot it well. You're going to have days where you don't shoot it so well. But defense should be the one constant, and it showed up the last 5-6 minutes of that game big time.
The craziest stat of the game, which I'm sure you're well aware of because we've talked about it being a detriment when it's been not in our favor. We out-rebounded them 40-36, and when I got that final stat sheet, I kind of did a double take when I looked at it. Almost 19 offensive rebounds. Basically, one half of your total rebounding total was on the offensive boards. I don't know that I've seen that in a long time.
I've not seen that in a long time with this group, but I tell you, we are capable. But how many extra possessions were we able to get because our guys, avalanched, what we call it, avalanched the offensive glass. And that's just an effort thing. And And so, but that's a unique stat, and I was very pleased to say. I don't know if we win the game if we don't have that many extra possessions. Would it turn out to be a one-possession game?
Julian Mackey with 16 points. Tenari Lane with 15. Jaden Turner just misses a double-double, 9 points, 12 rebounds. Bench points, of which Mackey was part of that, 16. He had exactly he had 16. You got 23 total points off your bench, 16 from him.
Yeah, and again, he's situated to probably be one of our more talented offensive ball players, and we needed every bit of his productivity.
All right, we've recapped James Madison and Old Dominion. On the other side of this break, we're going to look ahead to Coastal Carolina, and if I can get Coach to even mention Texas State. You know, coaches are always focused on just the next game. And then I'm going to ask him as we reminisce a little bit about the passing of Lefty Drizel. We'll get to that following this timeout here on the Panther Insider Podcast, driven by Ford, after these messages from Ford and Center Park Credit Union.
Wherever you go this fall, greatness starts in a Ford SUV. That's because Ford Escape, Explorer, and the spirited Bronco Sport SUVs have the power, cargo space, and smart tech you need for tailgating on game day, camping under the stars, fall festivals, romantic dinner dates, concerts, antiquing, pumpkin picking, weekend getaways, school plays. For great offers on these versatile SUVs, see your local Ford dealer today. Greatness starts here.
Whether you're a recent graduate, a young alumni, or an older alum, stay connected to your alma mater by becoming involved with the Georgia State University Alumni Association. The Alumni Office offers a wide variety of programs and services to keep you in touch, informed, and involved. Associate Vice President Christina Million.
Among our signature programs throughout the year, the Distinguished Alumni Awards, 40 Under 40 Honors, GSU Cares Day of Service, the Young Alumni Summit, as well as our Life Membership Program.
Representing nearly 285,000 alumni across Georgia and across the globe, the Alumni Association is here to serve, engage, and enhance the GSU community. Connect with us online at alumni.gsu.edu or call the Alumni Office at 404-413-2190. We're back on the Panther Insider Podcast, driven by Ford this week. We've recapped the games at James Madison and Old Dominion. And as I said to Coach Hayes at the top of the broadcast today, it's great that the final four regular season games are here in Atlanta. It's at GSU Convocation Center starting Wednesday night with Coastal Carolina, Saturday with Texas State. And as far as I know, barring, I believe, an NCAA tournament appearance, because we'll bust to Pensacola, we don't need to see it Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport for quite some time. I love the fact that you get to play these Final Four games at home.
Yeah, we don't have to unpack a suitcase or pack up a suitcase for a little bit. Again, we've played 16 of our first 26 games on the road. That's kind of, not ideal, but I tell you what, I think that's the adversity we've gone through. I think it's necessary. Our guys have really figured out or figuring out how to win and winning on the road. And you mentioned it earlier, Coach Drizel. You said good teams, those jokers, they went on the road, and so as in our process to become the team that we all want to be and the program that we want to be, that is a requirement. And so for us to be able to challenge our guys in the manner in which we have to come and try to play as best you can, but not just best you can, play your best, but also win on the road. That's a different ball game. And for us now finishing the season at home, that's a nice little carrot that's dangling.
I think the guy here in your basketball suite of offices that's above and beyond you, that's most happy about being able to stay at home, is Kent Davidson and Brandon Grimes and the rest of the team managers.
Yeah, both of those guys in our operational staff, Coach Davidson and Coach Grimes, they have been working like they are some robots, really, with a battery pack and with all the time they've put into scheduling itineraries, scheduling, appointments at hotels and restaurants and all gear, all of that. It's been a challenge, but a necessary challenge. But I'm excited for them. They get a chance to relax on that just a little bit.
It's like that old movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's planes, buses, and gyms, and and ordering food and restaurants, and they do between the two of them, and not overlooking the other managers. Kent and Brandon do a fantastic job getting you to where you need to go and putting in front of you food you want to eat.
Yeah, they are the masters of, I think it's a UPS, the logistics.
All right, let me ask you real quick. Coastal Carolina, I'm not going to say revenge. It's a game that falls under the woulda, coulda, shoulda when we were over in Conway, and this time you get them in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, we haven't forgotten that result when we played over in Conway. I think our guys are really determined to go out and play well on Wednesday. And, again, our prep has been really, really good, and we're going to continue to fight for carryover.
And I know you can't say much about Texas State. It's going to be the one and only time we see them during the regular season. Don't know about when you get down to Pensacola. But the fact that you have not seen them, you got to get ready for them. You can watch film, which I'm sure you're going to do, or go back and watch some old ESPN Plus broadcasts. But it'll be the one and only regular season meeting. That
adds a little bit of complexity this late in the season when you're facing an opponent for the first time. But we'll be prepared. I hadn't, to be honest with you, Dave, I hadn't dug into that yet. I won't probably dig into it a little bit maybe on Wednesday. I'm locked in on the Chanticleers.
All right, on this final segment of our Panther Insider podcast, driven by Ford this week with Coach Jonas Hayes, I did want to go back. If you missed our radio broadcast, and specifically at halftime, Saturday when we were at Old Dominion, I interviewed Coach Hayes really only about Lefty Driesell, again, who passed away at 92 on Saturday, former Georgia State coach, who was also at James Madison, Maryland, and Davidson. Some folks, who, if you missed that interview, don't realize that when Jonas and Jarvis transferred from Western Carolina to Georgia, Georgia State played Georgia in 2000, 2001 at Stegman. Georgia State won that game 91-79, and that was a good Georgia team. Coach Herrick, to his credit, returned the game to Atlanta. Wouldn't play in the sports arena, so we played in the Georgia Dome. Jarvis had, I think you told me, an ankle injury. You played in that game. I got to go back and see if I have my game sheets from that game. That'd be kind of cool to see that, though, because here you are all these years later as Georgia State's head basketball coach. My point is you were in a game at the Georgia Dome for Georgia playing against Georgia State and Lefty Driesell.
I'll tell you what, that just speaks to his ability to prepare teams, recruit teams, coach teams, motivate teams, inspire teams. They had beat up on us really, really bad in Athens the year my brother and I was sitting out. And so Coach Herrick, I thought he was a master motivator, master inspiring coach himself in his own right. He had us all fired up, ready to go. We playing Georgia State again, playing them downtown Atlanta in the Georgia Dome. He had us fired up, ready to go. I mean, you know what? We owe him all that, all the coach speak, and he had us really practice at a level 10. Shoot around was at a level 10, pregame speech at a level 10, and Jarvis, of course, was injured. And for them to put the stomp down on us again, and those Georgia teams, they were good. We were ranked in the country. We went to the tournament and all that year. And for Coach Driesell and Georgia State to beat us like we stole something, like we stole a government mule. And that just speaks to the level that he had his guys, Coach Driesell, foaming at the mouth, regardless of who was his opponent. And I got a good whiff for that.
Now, the game at Athens the year before was a Kevin Morris, Shenard Long, Darrell Cooper, Thomas Terrell, Bam Campbell. That was that 29-5 team. That next year, the guy that did the damage, from my memory, was the 6'11 center, in my opinion, the best big man to ever play at Georgia State, Nate Williams. 25 points, 12 rebounds, and I think he had 5 blocked shots.
Yeah, I think I still have what we use, Spalding, written across my forehead. I just scrubbed it off the other morning.
We were talking the other day about, and you're a young coach now. You know, you're in your second year at Georgia State. You've been coaching for a number of years, but I would consider you a young coach. We're not seeing giants of the game like we did with the lefties and the Roy Williams and the Coach K's and the Dean Smiths, and I'm just naming a handful off the top of we're not seeing that anymore.
No, for one thing, you don't see many coaches nowadays getting head jobs as early as those guys got them. You still have some anomalies here and there when they get into jobs when you're in your 20s. But more importantly for Coach Drizel, not only his physical stature, he was a large individual, tall, but his personality. He had presence, and he's one of the greatest storytellers. You'll be captivated. You can almost see the words coming out of his mouth in that accent that he had, and he was a larger than life individual that had a lot of success. So that added to his stardom, or whatever you want to call it, his presence. And it's going to be hard pressed to find somebody to number one, start his coaching career at such a young age, but have the success he's had over 4 institutions. Took every one of them to an NCAA tournament. That's going to be rare moving forward.
And the last thing I'll ask you about it is, you sit here now as Georgia State's head coach, and you were in high school when he was at Georgia State, because I always would kid around with you and with him. How did he not recruit you and Jarvis to Georgia State? You guys ended up on the first stop at Western Carolina. We would have loved to have the two of you here at Georgia State back in the day. But what I wanted to ask you about is, you sit here today as the Georgia State head basketball coach, built on what Bob Reinhardt started back in the day, because I think Bob was really the first significant hire locally. Lefty was the first significant hire nationally, and then you follow that with Carter, in between Carter Wilson, and then Lefty comes in, and then Rod Barnes a little bit. Certainly what Ron Hunter did, taking the program to the next level with as far as national exposure and that kind of success. And you sit here today and you can look back and you can see how the road has transpired to get you here today, a young guy.
I will be the beneficiary of the blueprint that Lefty Drizel, Coach Drizel, has laid out. Because what I really think he did, and being from the city of Atlanta, grew up 5-6 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, he kind of captivated people's imagination. But more importantly, he gave a blueprint on how Georgia State can be successful. And Georgia State is a unique individual, well situated, and the strengths that come along with it. But I thought Lefty Drizel, coming from me, from a kid that played pickup upstairs, we walked upstairs, and the escalators wasn't there. That escalator thing, it wasn't there, and he captivated people's imagination. You know what? Georgia State, they can get that thing done. And he was the first one, I thought, that really, really, really capitalized on the saturation of talent that's in our area and allowing them a place to come, quote unquote, come back to. And so I'm a beneficiary of that. All the coaches that have had success here after him can lay there, and I will always give credit to where credit is due. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. And he's already, done the hard work and figure out how Georgia State can be successful. I would be the village idiot for not following the blueprint.
Didn't want to forget Rob Lanier in his 3 years. And he faced the challenge, unlike any of the other coaches, being here during COVID, and still had 3 years of success. Lost 14 games over 2 years to COVID. Probably would have had 3 consecutive 20-win seasons, or at least 2, and then also took Georgia State to its most recent NCAA tournaments. I didn't want to forget Coach Lanier either.
He's done a phenomenal job as a contestant. He's a hell of a basketball coach. And again, we can all attribute our success to what Lefty Drizel. He captured all of our minds and gave us a blueprint.
All right, Coach, appreciate it. Always good to sit here and talk. This week we could sit here for another 30 minutes, but I'm not going to hold you to that. And best of luck this week. Home games, Coastal Carolina, Texas State. We'll see you at the Convocation Center.
Thanks, Dave. Let's go Panthers.
All right, I want to thank Georgia State's head basketball coach, and that's Jonas Hayes, joining me again this week inside Georgia State basketball. And don't forget, Panther fans, we're back talking Georgia State basketball again next week on the Panther Insider Podcast, driven by Ford. This is Dave Cohen saying thanks for listening. We'll see you at the GSU Convocation Center. We'll talk to you on the radio and ESPN+. And as always, go Panthers!